few years ago, my mother-in-law locked herself in the downstairs bog. Unfortunately, she managed to escape and she's still at large. But what had happened was that they had large brass doorknobs, huge great things, which had been fitted with spindles which were too short, which was okay, but the spindles tended to drift along into the knob and out of the other knob. So on this particular day, my mother-in-law found herself unable to open the bathroom door. Anyway, I'd got the spindle. I measured it. It was actually one of these. I measured it 19/64ths. So I trotted along to the architectural ironmongers and I said I wanted a length of doorknob spindle, and what I was looking for was a great big long length that I could cut into the appropriate sizes. Anyway, the lad said, what size do you want? And I just laughed and I said, well, actually it measures 19/64ths. And he said to me, huh, you can't measure something as accurately as that. What you would need would be some engineers' tools called micrometers. So I whipped them out of my pocket and I said, what do you mean these things? And he said, oh, yes. So I said, well, never mind. I said, it measures 19/64ths and that's what I want. And he said, there's no such thing. He said, we've got 7.6mm and 8mm. And so I came away empty-handed and I just welded a little bit of scrap onto the end of each spindle and made the doors at the in-laws' house a bit safer. Now, why 19/64ths? Well, to an engineer it's fairly obvious. Somebody starts manufacturing locks or doorknobs and goes along to an engineer's and said, well, I've got a piece of 5/16 spindle and I want a hole to go in the knob. And the engineer says, oh, well, we have a thing called a clearance size, which is 1/64th. That means something that will go clearly through and has enough tolerance on both parts not to refuse to go through. He said, but I do have 5/16 broaches. Now a broach is the piece of equipment which turns a round hole into a square hole. So he said, we'll just use 5/16 holes and we'll cut the bar down to the appropriate size. So that is the history. And for many, many years in Britain, a standard doorknob spindle was 5/16 clear, that is 19/64ths. And the hole in the lock or the doorknob was 5/16ths. And then we had to put up with metrication, which has been a mixed blessing, in my opinion, not a blessing at all, but there we are. And an industry standard doorknob spindle now is 8mm. Now, I get sick of people telling me that 8mm is 5/16ths. No, it isn't. 8mm is a few thou less than 5/16ths. Which can be quite handy nowadays because if we use an 8mm spindle in an old British lock or doorknob, it will just nice and snugly go down inside the broach. So we get a more firm fit in an old worn item. Now it turns out that 7.6mm, the other standard, is just about 19/64ths. So you use whatever you can get hold of. This little lock came out of a house built in 1840s, and I very much imagine that it was an original. And the spindle in this one is actually a 1/4" spindle. So there's a rather unusual thing. It's probably the only one that I've come across in the past 50 years or so. Now there are umpteen patent methods of fastening doorknobs onto spindles and onto handles. We're not concerned with those today. What we're concerned with today are the basic simple methods where the doorknob is held on with a grub screw. On this ancient one, the spindle is drilled through and through, and the grub screw goes in the doorknob, and it has a little bit of plane turned on the end of it, which locates in the end of the spindle. Simples, but it doesn't give much lengthwise adjustment. So we all know what it's like when you go and you turn the doorknob and then you pull it back a quarter of an inch, half an inch or whatever before it engages with the door. And various other methods have been devised over the years. These ones, where the spindle is threaded, have different centres at the other end, which will give you some more adjustments. And the thread for these spindles is 3/16 Whitworth, 24 threads per inch, and they're quite good because they go right through the doorknob, right through the spindle, and give you a secure fixing. These ones are more sophisticated and have a huge amount of adjustment. They can be adjusted at the far end onto 2 or 3 settings, and because the dimples into which the grub screw seat are staggered, you get quite a lot of adjustment there. Now these grub screws, which are threaded into the doorknob rather than the spindle, cause some confusion. They are, and were for an awful long time, standardized at 7/32 Whitworth with 24 threads per inch, same threads per inch as the 3/16 ones. And sometimes the 3/16 grub screws will just hold in this type of doorknob, but it's not a good hold. Sometimes they just slide up and down, but we should be using the correct size things. These old ones from the 1840s also had a 7/32 Whitworth grub screw, and if you can get hold of some of those grub screws on old doorknobs, they're worth putting in your box. Now, as I said, it's difficult to get hold of 7/32 Whitworth threaded screws, so you probably have to end up making your own. You can buy a 7/32 Whit die or die nut on eBay, and away you go. But just recently at the junk stall, I bought these old screw plates, which may probably go back to the 1850s, 1860s, and they give all sorts of obscure threads that we no longer use. 7/32 Whit, 5/32 Whitworth, which interestingly enough is the Meccano thread. This one even gives 64th Whitworth sizes, but I don't think I'll be using those. And if on an old junk stall you find one of this kind of adjustable die, you can use the 3/16 Whitworth dies to cut a 7/32 thread of sorts, because it's the same threads per inch. Good luck, and thank you for watching.